Welcome to another D5 football special on the YouTube channel. This week we're joined by Torquay fan Sam. We're going to be having a chat about Torquay's start to the season, how well they're doing, and why he thinks they've got to this position from where they were last season and the season before. Having a bit of a chat about some of the good players, perhaps even some of the bad ones, though I don't think there were many bad ones in this side, the manager, and also plug in one of our podcasts we did with Ben Whitfield from a few months ago, because I think that's quite a good podcast, and obviously going to be relevant because he's a Torquay player. So first of all, we always ask, how are you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm well, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, good. So first of all, for those who are not familiar, we're obviously going to be lots of Torquay fans watching this, but for those who are not really that familiar with Torquay, how they're doing, for all they know, they could be top of the league, bottom of the league, playoffs, wherever. How are they doing, position wise, and who are the sort of good players? Just a little sort of brief summary.
Yeah, so I mean, it's been a near faultless start, to be honest. Top of the league, I think we're 11 points clear at the time of recording. With I think we've got one game. We've only had one game to postponed, but so there are games with clubs with quite a few games in hand on us. But it's the old kind of it's all well and good having those games in hand, but you've got to do something with them. And obviously with the growing fixture pile up, it's I'd rather be in our position. The way the start of the season's gone, they kind of flew out the blocks really because the first game was against Stockport, and obviously Stockport were the big spenders in the league this summer. They brought in big names, and it was that kind of right, just get that one out of the way quickly. But won it in the last minute, which obviously wasn't expected, and last minute win gives you a boost. I think we lost the next game away. It was Eastleigh, and then from them they just went on this run, and they didn't lose for. I don't think they lost until the Dagenham game recently, actually, and with late wins, which shows that bit of character. All the great Man United teams over the years, won those games late on. So I think that adds sort of shows the character in the squad. You mentioned some of the good players we've got. I mean, really, I think we're blessed in every position at the moment. We've got a couple of injuries. Danny Wright, top scorer, he's got a hamstring problem. Ben Winter, our right back's been out for a little while, who I'd say is probably the most underappreciated player at the club. Everyone knows how good he is, but being a defender, it's easy to forget how important he is. And I think when he's injured, that shows. But yeah, standout. We've got some proper standout players. I mean, obviously Ben Whitfield. You mentioned the podcast with him. He's been outstanding. He was outstanding when he came in last season. I think we were all kind of relieved when he signed on for another season because you need that. You need a quality player who's going to make a difference, and so much comes through him: goals, assists, that constant energy. Obviously, we've got Armani Little, central midfielder, who on his day is probably the best central midfielder in the league. Set piece specialist. He can find a pass that a lot of players wouldn't be able to find, but he's had his injury problems. So, I think if they get 20 games out of him, I think that's a good return. But yeah, in regards to start of the season, delighted. I think they've done far better than anyone expected, and it's just about trying to maintain it, really.
So I think it's fair to say, like I said, where the club has come from, with National League South a few years ago. Last season, you could call it a season, if you like, was a bit, not sort of up there, top of the league, not getting relegated, kept the position, and now we've gone on. So from where the club went from to where they are now, why and how has that happened? Because it is a bit of, the dramatic crisis, if you like, but usually that sort of clubs coming in with a billionaire owner and putting loads of money, but it doesn't seem like that's happened. It just seems like the club are on a bit of a downward spiral, if you like. New manager, came in, Gary Johnson came in, changed the club around, turned it around, and now you've got to this position.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I think the downward spiral, I believe it started in, we had a season in the Football League, 2011, 2012. Martin Ling was the manager. And and we fell short of automatic promotion with a couple of games to go and missed out on the playoffs. Following season, he had to kind of stop. He had a bad series of depression, which was really sad. And then from there, they unfairly dismissed him, and then they brought in a manager called Alan Neil, who's actually assistant to Chris Wilder at the moment at Sheffield United. But bad management mixed with bad signings just kind of spiraled. We stayed up, then got relegated, and then in the Football League, in the conference, first season back, we had an okay season in the first one back, but change of ownership, money issues, it kind of all spiraled. And despite a couple of great escapes from Kevin Nicholson when he managed us, obviously Gary Hours took us down into part-time football or regional football, and it was you get quite worried. You think, is there a way out of this? And when we started the season in the National League South, it was a bad start. Gary Hours they just weren't performing, and I think every fan was calling for him to lose his job. Because we had some good players at the time as well. That's one thing I will have to say about Gary Hours. He made some very good signings. The nucleus of the squad we've got at the moment are Gary Hours signings, to be fair. But Gary Johnson came in, and I think there was just that instant buzz of excitement because it's such a proven manager, and not just proven at he's proven at non-league level. He's taken up. Well, he's got numerous promotions with Yeovil Town. He took them up, and he'd taken Cheltenham up a couple of years before. So I think when he came in, there's that real buzz that actually we're onto a good thing here. And the feel-good factor never really left. We got promoted that season. We finished 9 points clear or something in the end, but we effectively sealed it with a really exciting and dramatic away day at Woking, who are our title rivals. Ben Windsor with a 93rd minute win equaliser, which sealed it really. And then like you said, last season it was a bit of an odd one because we started okay, and then kind of towards the end of October, I remember going to Halifax away, and we beat them 4-2. And that scoreline flattered Halifax. We were outstanding that day. I remember leaving the ground and said to the guys I said, well, we're going to win this. This league's here for the taking. It got into November and half the squad got kind of long-term injuries, and they just didn't really recover. So when football was kind of cancelled, on a Torquay front, it was a little bit of a relief because I thought we weren't going to go down, but we weren't going to go up. So I thought that's good. And I think going into this season, I think the biggest thing is they've made the right signings, and I think one of the reasons they're so successful is they've still got the core of the squad that got promoted from the Conference South. So you've got Sean McDonald, the goalkeeper, Carl Cameron at centre back, who's vice captain as well. Ben Winter right back, Asa Hall in the middle, captain. Massively experienced at this level. I'd probably forget a couple of others, but going into this season, they brought in those couple of extra players with that extra bit of quality. Obviously Ben Whitfield came in last season. Armani came in last season, and I think also the sensible signings of Danny Wright. I mean, he's what 36 now, and he's 8 goals this season. But it gives you a real kind of a proper focal point at the top and leads from the front. Dean Moxey at left back, who within the last 10 years has played Premier League football. So having that balance of real experience and youth, it just they complement each other so well at the moment. And I think that's one of the reasons we're doing so well. But I do think it's all down to the manager, all of it. I've never seen Torquay as such a buzzing club, in the 16, 17 years have been going.
So to answer sort of the question, then you say why and how it would be. Gary Johnson came in, turned the club around from the spiral it was on, a downward spiral. Came in, got promoted, but kept the nucleus of that squad throughout the sort of 2 years throughout last season, which weren't finished, but brought in the younger players like you Ben, or and then the older players, experience like Dean Moxley, what have you, to move that club on. So that balance, like I said, of the new guys coming in to freshen stuff up, getting rid of some of the, not, let's be honest, not as good players. You couldn't make that step up, and that's why you've gone on. Now, obviously, so as a fan, as a fan watching that, then obviously you don't want to see the downward spiral, like I said, from just missing out playoffs in League Two, relegated. But now, as a fan watching the team coming back up, how exciting is it?
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. When you've watched, I mean, when I started supporting through League One, and a couple of years ago, that was just a million miles away. You thought, well, that's not going to happen again. But I think Torquay fans have never had it easy. It's always been, we've either been up at the top or down at the bottom. We've never, in the time that I've been going, we've never finished the season mid-table really. But I think when you have, in the conference we had 2 great escapes, which is a great feeling on the last day, but it's not enjoyable for the season. You get relegated. You do think, is there any way back from this? And I think just to see the club in, the chairman was a bit, I think a lot of people were a bit suspect of him when he came in, and probably remains to be, which is fair enough. But to be fair to the owners, they've backed the manager. We're doing well, and it's just nice to see the club progress well on the pitch, be one of the teams to beat, or the team to beat at the moment, and and also be in good hands. Especially in times like this when obviously Macclesfield went. I remember at the start of the pandemic, Barnet made a lot of redundancies off the pitch, and it was nice that Torquay was being kept in really professionally, in good hands.
So regards this season, then we spoke about how they got here. From your point of view as a fan, who would you say sort of the key players are for this season?
I think it goes through the spine of the team, to be honest. So, they've had their trouble with the goalkeeping position. There's almost 2 players fighting for the number 1 jersey, which isn't ideal. But Carl Cameron at centre back's been outstanding. He was great in the Conference South. He had an okay year last year, but this season he just looks like a different player. And also I suppose when Asa Hall is injured or suspended, Carl Cameron, he leads from the back, and he's young for a centre back, and but you wouldn't think it. He's outstanding. Dean Moxley, with his experience at left back, has been brilliant. I think he's really helped the younger lads at the back. Like I said earlier, you've got Ben Winter, you've got a couple of loan lads. Sam Sharon from Bournemouth at centre back, he's been fantastic, and filled in at right back. Asa Hall's probably been my player of the season so far. He's 34 now, but playing his best football for Torquay. A proper leader, and you notice him more when he's not there, which I think is always a real kind of compliment to a footballer, because he holds that team together, and he'll get up and down the pitch, leading by example. Danny Wright up front's been a revelation. Again, you wouldn't think he was 36. But I mean, player of the year, bar Asa, I think at the moment you can't really look past Ben Whitfield. I know most Torquay fans would agree, and I think a lot of other non-league fans who've seen him play would agree that Ben Whitfield is probably the best player at this level, and probably better. Would comfortably walk into most League Two sides. I think he's just an outstanding footballer.
On the attackers, like you said, you spoke about Danny Wright, and the attackers wise, strikers. Last season, obviously, had Jamie Reid, who scored vast majority of the goals for Torquay, and then the second, there wasn't really anyone. It was like you had a few guys. I think the second to him, he got near 20 goals. I think it was, and then second, like there would have been players on 4 or 5. Yet this season it's a bit different. Why you've got right out in front of you, like it seems to be the goals are being shared between about 5 or 6 players. Where you got already halfway through, well, not even halfway through, about a third way through the season, you've got about 5 or 6 players who've got about 4 or 5 goals each. So the sort of goals have been shared out amongst the team. So when the club lost him in the summer and he went to Mansfield, what was the sort of reaction like? Obviously, you wanted to keep him, but were Torquay fans worried goals wise, or were you sort of?
Yeah, I think we were all gutted to see him go. Because we got him from Exeter. He came through Exeter's academy, but he grew up as a Torquay fan, and to have one of your own on the pitch doing so well is brilliant. But so in the Conference South, he scored about 30 league goals that season. Then I can't remember when he got last season, sort of 20 odd, but he really was brilliant. He scored goals of all sorts of all types of goals. But I've always been of the belief I don't think you need one striker who's going to score 20 goals a season. Because my worry is if you're relying on one player to score the goals, the second they're taken out of the team, even if you still had them and they're suspended or injured, where are the other goals coming from? So and also in the time that I was supporting Torquay, so I went in, started going when we were in League One, and in that whole 16 years, apart from Jamie Reid, I could probably mention one goal scorer who get about 20 goals a season, and that was Tim Seals. So I've always kind of liked seeing a side that have got lots of goal scorers, rather than one player get all of the goals. Because you look at this season, Danny Wright scored, Ben Whitfield scored, Asa Hall scored, even the defenders are chipping in. And I think you take one of them out of the team, and there are still goals in it, rather than relying on one player. That's not to say that we don't miss Jamie Reid. At times you think you need that extra bit of energy up front, or that different option, because Danny Wright is a completely different striker. He's that old style kind of number 9 target man, a proper focal point. Whereas Jamie Reid was, you're much more kind of modern striker. Would make those runs into the channels that that you want that kind of player to do. And like I say, we score all type of goals, and of course he'd still do something in this side. He'd make a big difference. But I was never worried when he left, and I think also we're fortunate to have a manager that you can trust. That he's going to bring in the right players.
So you sort of similar. What how do I say it? Sort of what has happened this season is what you thought would happen. Perhaps that right, you want to keep that type of player, obviously scoring 20 goals a season, but the goals have been shared out, so you don't. There's not sort of one point of destruction. If you like, you lose that one player, you're absolutely done for. You've got to lose about 4 or 5 players before you lose all your goals. So with players like Ben and all these guys who are chipping in with 4 or 5 goals each, it's going to be hard to sort of take all of them out.
Yeah, no, exactly. So Danny Wright is injured at the moment. He's got a hamstring problem. But we still, he came off in the Oval game. We still scored goals after he'd come off. Then we played Weymouth away, scored 4, scored 3, scored 4. Can't remember now. And then we score away at Woking. Sorry, away at the Oval. So we've got Nemain on the right scores, Whitfield on the left, Connor Evans in midfield scores. There are goals littered throughout this team, and I think when you're not relying on one person, it makes it far easier to, especially with the high volume of games this season where players are going to get those fatigue injuries and not be able to feature. That you've got other players to step up and get those goals.
Let's look at talking the league. Defeats wise, there's not been many, but the ones that have happened have not come against title rivals, teams in the top, have come against teams who are currently down at the bottom. I've got Eastleigh, Dagenham, Redbridge, and Yeovil. Now Yeovil's appeared on a bit of a good run recently, so maybe that's not a fair sort of assessment for them. The teams are down near the bottom. Why do you think that is? That you can, the team can do so well against teams near the top, but then when it comes to ones in the bottom, there's not struggling. You still beat teams down at the bottom, but there's the defeats, if any, are with teams down at the bottom.
No, interesting one. I mean, the Eastleigh game was the second game of the season. I think it was, first away game. We did take the lead in that one, but obviously fell behind. And I think early in the season, you're still kind of finding your feet as a team, especially after a short pre-season. So it's hard to judge that one. But the Dagenham one was an interesting one because, they really set up to get a point, or if they were going to win it, it was going to be that kind of smash and grab win. So Paul McCallum, of course, he was ex-Torquay, scored the only goal of the game, but that was on a counter attack, back post header, and then we were at him for the whole of the game. The whole of the second half. It was one of those you could really feel the goal coming, but it just didn't. Threw everything at it, and that game you had to give credit to Dagenham because they defended so well, and we could have been playing for hours and we wouldn't have scored. And the Yeovil game, I wasn't surprised we didn't win because, it's the fixture pile up. I know every team's got it, but it's going to show. And also, we beat them 6-1 a week earlier. If you're beating 6-1 and then you've got a chance a week later to put it right, you're going to do absolutely everything you can. So, again, I just think we could have been playing that game for hours, and they would have beaten us because they were going to do absolutely everything in their power to put right the 6-1 defeat. And fair play to them. They probably were better than us on the day.
Speaking about that 6-1 defeat, I think I don't quite know. Maybe it's postponements because of positive tests and stuff like that. But what was the reason for the two fixtures being that close together? I think it's a bit sort of strange, sort of how those sort of come about, and
it's just the Christmas double, isn't it? So we had them on Boxing Day and then New Year, 2nd of January. But so because we had it same last season. We were away at their place on Boxing Day and they beat us 6-2. They actually beat us on New Year's Day, but it was a bit closer. But yeah, it's that kind of fixture pile up. I've seen it throughout the years. Last time in the conference we had Exeter as the Christmas double, lost away at their place 4-3 on Boxing Day and beat them 1-0 on New Year's Day. It's one of those. I actually think I almost rather we beat them at home on Boxing Day 2-0 because they've not got such a point to prove on New Year's Day. You put 6 past the team and they're going to be desperate to beat you.
So that 6-1 win against Yeovil, sort of right in the geography of sort of Southwest, somewhat of a derby, if you like. There's not many teams down there to have a derby with, really. That game, what was that like, and sort of the craziness of it? And for a team, Yeovil, to be fair, are quite big. The status of the club is quite big, but been struggling. So for them, they must have been hard for the Yeovil fans to take.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's funny because with Yeovil, there's never been a huge rivalry because we've always kind of missed each other. When we were in the league before we got relegated in 2006, I think it was 2007. They were non-league and we kind of passed each other by. We played them in the cup, FA Cup. I think it was 2008, maybe 2007. But apart from that, we never really met them. And then obviously we played them last season, and they're the closest team geographically to us. They're Somerset, so 4 hours drive away. So I mean, when we played them on Boxing Day last year, like I say, they beat us 6-2. Obviously, for those that have been to Yeovil, their away end hasn't got a roof. Absolutely poured it down a day. So that was, we all kind of felt quite bitter towards them that day. Played them on New Year's Day, lost 2-1, 3-1, can't remember. So this season it was one of the first fixtures people looked out for because you're desperate to kind of get one over them. And I think one of the bonuses this year was that I think it was the last game we were allowed into before this lockdown, or tier 3 and then lockdown, whatever it was. So it's, as good as the streams are at the moment, to be able to go in and watch that one was fantastic. I only wish Yeovil fans could have been there to enjoy it too.
So, obviously, for any fans seeing your team top of the league, you'd absolutely love that. But of course, there's always going to be a fear of wanting to, keep it up. Can the team keep it up? Can they keep going? Do you think Torquay can keep it up? And what do you think, if they can, what do you think are the weak points, if you like, that a certain player has to go, or something like that, a weak point, or perhaps a part of the system that another team can exploit, that will then see sort of downfall as such, but a loss in form that means that the other teams will pick up ground, obviously, with the big gap you've got in front of them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't doubt that we can win this league. I think we're a really good team to start with, and the way we're playing, you've almost got that attitude. You score one, we'll score two. You score two, we'll score three. We've had late winners, like I said earlier, which shows the character. And I think with the manager, he's done it before. He's won this league before, so we've got that experience. We've got players that have won the league before. I think we're probably lucky as well in the sense that where we are geographically, we haven't been as affected by COVID. So the only game we've had called off is rearranged for Tuesday coming, and that's against Solihull, who's obviously in Midlands. That one got postponed, and you see Stockport, one of the teams I thought would be right up there with this. They've had loads of games postponed, so I think it helps that we haven't had any kind of real COVID trouble down here. In terms of where we could slip up, it all hinges on injuries. Last season we had some massive injury problems, and whilst we've been okay this year, you can see that without Ben Winter in at right back, when he's been injured, you've struggled. Armani Lissel, I mentioned earlier, if he's got he really has had his injury troubles, but if we can get 20 games out of him, I think that's a massive factor. Other weaknesses, I'd say, up front we've had a bit of obviously when Danny Wright's been playing, he's just been brilliant, and he offers us that kind of real focal point. We've got a couple of other lads. So Josh Umera came in from Ebbsfleet, I think, and I think he's got a lot of potential, but he's not the finished article. I don't think he's the player you wouldn't want to rely on him, with all due respect. I do think he's a good player, and I think he's got a good future, but right now, I don't think he's got that experience. Got a young lad, Billy Waters, who signed from Cheltenham, I think, a free agent. Again, he's been out with Gary Johnson before, so we haven't seen enough of him yet, but what I have seen, I'm encouraged by. But yeah, with Danny Wright injured, that's somewhere that I think they need to address, bring in another striker. Because they did sign a chap called Andrew Nelson from Dundee in the summer, but he's had this knee problem that's looks like it's going to probably keep him out until at least the end of the season. So I think that was a bit of a tough card for him to deal with, but the fact they've overcome that. But I'd say that's the only real weakness I see. Potentially the goalkeeping situation, but I think both goalkeepers are good enough for this league.
So, general sort of thing is Danny Wright up top. Marley scored the goals. He's been a bit injured and stuff like that. So you see that's sort of the weak point then, perhaps, that something out there.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't play every game 90 minutes because he's, like I say, he's 36, but you wouldn't think it the way he does play. And I think he's been outstanding. And this is his first injury that he's had this season. He got on Boxing Day in the first half, I think it was. So he's done his hamstring. I'm not sure how long he's out for, but it's just that weakness of you lose your number 9, your main goal scoring threat, and you are going to notice him not being there, not just for the goals, but I think for everything else he brings to the team.
So for fans then, sort of moving away from sort of play and stuff like that, just for the fans in general for viewing this, what are the fans like? Are they getting a bit giddy now that we're third way through the season? It's still going. Sometimes it happens where you have a little bit of a run, 5 or 10 games into the season, and it drops off. Are the fans getting a bit giddy? I must admit, you see that beating your local rival 6-1, you've been top of the league, that momentum's building up, you keep going. Well, you'd love to be there, obviously, watching it in real life. Fans must be getting quite excited that the Football League's returning.
Yeah, I think everyone is really excited, the prospect of going back up into the league where I do believe that Torquay belong, that we're a big enough club. I think people are just enjoying it after all the trouble we've had over the years. All the the relegations, the seasons right down at the bottom. I think everyone's just really enjoying it, and I think the only shame is that we can't be there for all of it. But because I was sceptical at the start of the season. I thought if we can't get in, if it's a whole season of watching on streams, I'd rather a mid-table finish. But now you think, no, I just want to win it now. It's even not being there, you really feel a part of it. And I just think everyone's really enjoying it. It's just been great fun to be top of the league. It doesn't happen to us often. When we won the Conference South, that was our first championship in 90 years or 100 years or something. So, everyone's just enjoying it. I mean, if you read through Torquay fans' tweets, some of them apparently have been convinced we're going to win the league from the first kick of the season. But, like I say, it's enjoyable not to be struggling as a Torquay fan. I think anything above the relegation is a bit of an adventure.
So fans are quite happy then. For you then personally, from what you see, your thoughts, your beliefs for the team, going to ask for a prediction. End of the season, pending the fact obviously that the season will finish. We're not entirely sure. I think there's been a bit of rumours, if you like, that the season might not finish for some non-league teams. We'll see if that affects National League. We'll have to see. But if the season finishes, Torquay, where they're finishing?
Top. I think we're going to win it.
You think you're going to win it? Well, we'll bookmark that. We'll save it. We'll come back.
100%.
Come back in June. I think it might be now. I don't know. We don't know when the season's going to finish. Really, it could get pushed back, but we'll come back whenever. And we'll see.
I saw something earlier that some clubs are calling for the season to finish. I think you've got to finish it like you did last season, and if it means taking a couple of weeks circuit break and extending it, do that. Don't take our promotion away from us. Come on.
I mean, not to make it, divert too much from Torquay so much, but I think, you could sort of forgive them for last season for not having anything in place because it got sprung on them within a couple of weeks. But I think you've had a year to sort this out now. You've had a long time to sort it out and set a plan in place to think, well, if the government say now you've got shut down, what do you do? And there are lots of ideas. There's even one idea which is quite crazy that I saw, which was doubling up last season and this season. So you'd finish, keep everyone in, this sounds bad, I know it is, keep everyone in the same league, no promotions, whatever, in non-league. Continue all the fixtures from last season, count them as last season, but also count them as this season as well. Some crazy ideas and, lots of crazy ideas that people have come up with to sort it out. I think you could forgive them, though, for not having anything sorted for last season. You could sort of say, fair enough, one in 100-year event. For this season, you've got to sort of say, well, where's your plan for what's going to happen if the government did come along and say, now you've got to shut down again, you're not allowed to play or whatever. You should have some kind of plan, really.
That's the thing. And you think at the start of the season, there must have been meetings and they said, look, because obviously everyone hoped that was it. When we got to the summer and it all kind of died down a little bit, everyone thought that's it. Normality's coming. And I think they must have sat down and you have to prepare for a worst case scenario that the government say, right, football has to stop or elite football has to stop. In which case you've got to have a plan where you go, right, if we've played this much of the season, finish it on points per game, if you're that close, or you say, right, we have a 3 or 4 week circuit break, all the players self-isolate like everyone else is effectively, or you're in lockdown and only out for essentials, and then you go again. Because, one thing I thought is if the whole country's in lockdown, there are going to be cases that the players have got. If everyone kind of in the world of football self-isolates and locks down for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whilst we're all in isolation, they should be able to carry on fairly safely because they're not going to be mixing with anyone. So, yeah, it is a tricky one, but they've got to have a way of finishing it. Like you say, you can forgive them for last season, but everyone knew that this was still a threat.
Yeah, I think that's sort of. I think you could do a whole podcast of having a go at sort of the authorities within football, EFL, FA, National League, all these sort of guys running things that perhaps don't always do the correct thing. I don't always think through what they're sort of putting out, and sort of saying these are the rules of what you got to follow, or whatever, and stuff like that. I think they've all now just got sort of testing mandatory in lower league, so it's just one of them really where, bar the government sort of coming along and shutting you down. Just going to keep going really until you literally got every single game called off if it does get that bad. But that's sort of more to do with what the government says and what government does really, rather than sort of what the clubs can do really, because there's not much the clubs can do really. If the league comes along and says, right, you've got to play, you've got to follow those rules that they put in place. So it's not really that fair on them.
No, exactly, and it's I think what the government can say, football can carry on, doesn't mean it's got to. The FA have got the right to say actually, or the Premier League have got the right to say, look, and whatever the Premier League does will filter down. That's I think they will ultimately call the shots. But all they'd have to say is, right, because of the rising cases, we're going to do this. But the other thing to consider is once if clubs have too many cases and they've got to postpone a game, doesn't mean every club's got to postpone a game that week. It unfortunately means that clubs can have more games to play. And I think the simple solution would be to extend the season. I know the Euros are in the summer, but especially lower down the leagues, extend the season a bit and let teams catch up then.
That was another thing. Will the Euros actually go ahead this year? Because they might sort of cancel them altogether and sort of say, yeah, we can't do it. Also, I think the Olympics as well, I don't know what I've not been following the Olympics, but I know they've been sort of, they'll be sort of worried, like I said, but will we have to push it back another year? I don't know.
I mean, personally, I think it makes sense to push it back another year. Just get, this vaccine's getting rolled out. There is light at the end of the tunnel. Let life get a bit more normal, and then next summer, 2022, when you think this would all be a memory, do it all then. Having said that, I've got little interest in international football anyway. So it wouldn't make any odds to me, but I know there are some that wouldn't best be pleased with the Euros being cancelled. But
what about sort of push it back to next year again, like you said, do a combined World Cup and Euros type of thing, where extended proper, you do the Euros first, then you do World Cup or something. That might be something to do. If anyone does that, I want money for that, because that's my idea of that.
Yeah, have a chat with Sepp Blatter. He pay it non-tax.
Yeah, he'd give me some money when he's reloaded. Well, I think FBI are after him out there, something, wanting to go to prison or something. So something like that. That was about 6 years ago now, and I don't think anything's actually properly happened about that investigation, has it? So
it wouldn't, would it? Because that's football, That's FIFA. About as corrupt as it can get, isn't it? With the, I still haven't worked out how Russia and Qatar got World Cups, but I'm sure it's something to do with the pound note.
Yeah. Anyway, went off a bit of a diversion there, talking about all sorts, which is, I don't mind that. It's quite entertaining, really. Anyone who's still watching this, I don't know if you are, Torquay fans watching this, we sort of mentioned it at the start and halfway through, whatever, but we did do a podcast with Ben Whitfield, obviously Torquay guy. In your words, that said, one of the better players in the league, if not the best. It's quite a good one. I know you sort of said you hadn't heard of it before, but when I asked you to come on, you sort of watched a bit of it. So we'll leave that in the description to go and have a watch. It's about 40 minutes long, but it's got some good stuff on his time before coming to the Torquay and bit on this season. It's a few weeks, about 2 months old, obviously. So you're not going to get anything from a few weeks ago, but he does give quite good insight into sort of from a player's point of view how the club got to where they are now, and how he came to sign for the club and everything that happened before him with his previous clubs, which is always quite interesting to see, even if you're not a Torquay fan. Just say thanks to you, mate, for coming on, taking time out and having a bit of a chat about Torquay. Maybe do another one, end of the season, Torquay got promoted, you can sort of have a bit of review if you like. And
definitely. If we get promoted, happily. If we don't get promoted, I'll be changing my name, but after our prediction. But definitely be good to come back.
I know you're not sort of a player or anything like that, you're just a fan, but if people want to find you to follow, see what you're saying about Torquay, where can they find you? On Twitter or whatever? I'm
on Twitter at Sam Drewith, which is mostly terrible opinions on football and politics. So, follow if you like, but if you don't follow, you're not missing out.
There you go. Just say thanks for coming on, mate, and hopefully Torquay get promoted. We'll have a chat end of the season, have a review of all the good and bad bits. FA Cup game, I don't know if that's some kind of record or anything, I don't know, but I was looking at that like, that's a crazy game. We went into extra time and you lost 6-5, you scored in that game. Explain what happened with that, because I was looking at that thinking, well, Was that a case of both teams had really, really good attacks, or both teams had bad defences then, or what happened there?
A bit of both, really. I think the goals that were scored on the day, if you watch them back, were all very good goals. All probably deserve to be goals. They've scored some great goals. We scored some great goals. I don't think you can put it down to bad defending. Sometimes just things happen. Being 2-0 up at half time, we were by far the better team, and if you're at half time, we deserve to be in the lead and we deserve to win the game. I still don't think we deserve to lose the game now. Watching it back, it's very harsh. We were 5-3 up and 2-0 up. So we had 2 goal cushions both times, and when you've got them, you shouldn't be losing the game. So it's gone off again, sorry mate. But yeah, we shouldn't be losing the game, and we have. We've put that to the back of our heads now, and we've got to move on and move forward and focus on the league and hopefully getting promotion.
Is that something that sort of the manager's been saying? Because it's positive, obviously, that Crawley, obviously, league above, and scoring that amount of goals against them is obviously a good thing, but also conceding isn't any good. Is that something that he's sort of been able to say, well, this is what you did good, and you sort of taking that into the league?
Yeah, whenever you score 5 goals at home, I don't think you should be losing the game. But it's happened, and score 5 goals against a team that are a league above, and they're actually doing really well. They were a good side. They passed the ball, moved the ball, and I think they'll be right up there this season in League Two. And I thought we gave them a really good game and gave a good account as ourselves, and probably shown that we can do it at the next step if we prove ourselves more in this league and hopefully get the chance to gain a promotion.